Hello, my lovely listeners, and welcome to my podcast, We Share, We Grow. I'm your host and holistic coach, Aoife Rafter. If you want to be empowered to take action in your self-development journey, then you are in the right place. We Share, We Grow will bring you closer to reaching your full potential through sharing and growing from the life-changing advice of my favourite health and wellness experts. I believe that we grow through what we go through, and together we can become abundant in all aspects of health and wellness despite our health challenges. I'm so excited to be part of your self-development journey, just as so many of you have been part of mine. So let's do this. Let's share and grow together. Hello, my lovely listeners, and welcome to season 1 of my new podcast, We Share, We Grow. I am very excited to introduce my next guest, a powerful force to be reckoned with. She is a lifestyle and business mentor, a podcast host, energy worker, and a hypnotherapy and essential oil fanatic. Please welcome this inspiring woman, essentially Elaine. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Wow, what a nice introduction. Jesus, you actually sell me better than I sell myself.
I don't know about that now. Well, you also describe yourself in your Instagram bio on essentially Elaine as a 5-1 manifester, which we have just been discussing offline because I did not know what that was. And for anyone else who finds your profile and doesn't know what exactly that means, could you describe that a little bit for us?
Oh, we're going straight in there. Yes. So, a manifester. So, what we were chatting about offline was human design, which has been my latest fascination the past couple of years. So, we're just doing Aoife's chart there. So, she's a 3-5 generator for anyone who's interested in human design, which you will see from her the fact that she is a builder of society, a force of energy. And the 5 profile, which we both have in common, means that we see things, we see the world differently. So I'm always like a 5-1 because it's interesting. Like I always look at this with clients that I work with. I'm always like, what's your human design? Because Joe, it helps me understand more what they're here for, regardless of what they've been conditioned to behave. So for me, when I was leaving my corporate job, like obviously we're fitting into this like, well, 9 to 5, 9 to 8, whatever kind of structure that we were in, like working loads. And I was going against, I suppose, the grain a little bit in to some extent of who I am. But there's an element of me when I moved into the holistic space that I was like shunning my past. I was really like, no, that was corporate, that wasn't me, whatever, yada, yada, yada. And then I discovered human design. So we've 5 energy types. We've the manifester, who are here to initiate. They're here to initiate others, spark fires, trigger people. Like we start things. Then the generators are the ones that come along and respond. So they respond to all this like, creativity and sparks, and they help build it. They like create the movement of people to get things done. Then you've got the Mani Gen, so manifesting generator, which is a hybrid of both of those. So you've got someone who will initiate a lot of things, but they also have like more energy to execute. You have the projectors, who are the wise guides of society. Like, so real, just they hold so much wisdom within them. I always will seek out a projector for as in coaching, and for spiritual kind of coaching and mentoring. Always I go to projector because they're generally like a really, really strong channel. And then you've got the reflectors. So the reflectors are like the philosophers in society. There's only 1% of the population that are philosophers.
Wow.
So basically that's only just like covering on the energy types. There's so much to go into on it. But for me, when I went in, I got my reading done, it goes into your profile, how you make decisions. So like I have sacred authority, which means I make decisions like this. So you're like, Elaine, do you want to come on the podcast? I'm like, 100%. Some people will be like, yeah, no, whatever. Like, because they could have like emotional authority, for example. So they emotionally will make decisions on how they feel. So both me and my husband, for example, are manifestors. But when I told him he was a manifester, I did his chart. He was like, no, I'm not, I'm nothing like you. And I'm like, it doesn't matter, because you've got the energy type, but then you've got your profile, you've got different gates. So when I broke down mine, it was like, you need to speak. Like you're here, my throat center is defined. So it was like, that's how you're going to create the biggest change in the world. So he has the emotional authority and I've got sacral. So he takes a long time to make decisions. So this is why we're going, God, we're so different. And I'd be going nuts going, God, don't even go, what do you want for dinner? Like, nope, drives me crazy. So when I started getting readings done, I sent him to the coach I go to, because I was like, and she actually did a session with us both, and she was like, right, there's a lot of fire in both of you, but you've got some key distinct differences in terms of how you process information, etc. And then so she did a reading with us both, and actually it brought so much more peace and patience for in our relationship. It was
Because you
really good.
understood each other, of course.
Exactly. And like I think in life, like the deeper that we understand ourselves, like the deeper the connection that we can build with other people. So it's really magical. And then you'll also notice, like as we were talking about with the 5 profile, you're like, I've always seen things differently. So when I actually started reflecting back on my career, and I worked internationally in Asia, and I was always involved in like startup, like big startups, like, but building businesses from the ground up. And that was because I can see beyond what's in front of me. Like it's actually a real gift. And that's actually what I have brought into work I do in, the building of our new world now, is because I can see beyond just like the A to B that's here. And it's how everything interconnects, Joe.
Wow.
So, and this is what you're also gifted at as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna like read up a little bit more now, since I know what I am, and probably test everybody in my life and see why we clash or why we get on so well. Because I just love, like, I remember even doing, when I was doing my social care degree, like I loved the psychology classes and the abnormal psychology, and I just really love understanding people, because as you say, then we can bring a bit more peace and prosperity to our relationships. We can just take a moment with the people that we do need to take a moment with and breathe before we react. Unfortunately, as my human design profile says, it took me a while to learn that through experience rather than just being told. But what you're saying there as well, like about all the different things you've done, like Jesus Christ, you're so young to have like so much mad different experience in your career and everything. I'd love to know kind of a little bit more how you got to this point in your like professional and personal life. Like what brought you to this crazy journey?
What brought me on this crazy journey? Jesus. I don't I think I've always been like this. I was always the black sheep of the family. And I think the difference is now, is like that I own it. I own the fact that I'm not the same as everyone else. I own the fact that I don't see things the same. And it's actually like it's been a huge journey of like healing, self-love, shadow work, to actually step up as a leader and go, I'm here to fucking create the change. I'm not going to wait for it to happen. And I think the thing with when you understand what your human design right is that you're either in alignment with your design or you're not. And I think there's definitely, I was blessed in terms of, I suppose, the career path that I did follow. Like, I mean, for me, don't get me wrong, like I had a ball of a time in my 20s in my career. Like, I mean, when I say I worked hard and I partied harder, like 100%. Like, I'd be in the office till 11 o'clock, and then I was up in Marina Bay Sands, like, that boat in Singapore when I was living there, like partying for ladies night. Yeah, it was, and then still back at the desk. But I mean, it was an unsustainable lifestyle, but like in my early 20s, like it was great crack,
Yeah, yeah.
And I think for me, it was always, it was following the urge. Like, I just think I was following the breadcrumbs unbeknownst to myself. And then, but what happened was then, like, the higher I went to my corporate job, I earned more and more money, but I had less and less time. And for me, as the manifestor needing the freedom, even though I worked in quite like real entrepreneurial corporations, because it was like I was moving around. I was in Fiji for a project for 6 months, and I was moved to Myanmar for, it was a lot of go. So the diversity kept me hungry and learning, and I just love learning. But then I was kind of going, I actually don't want to get to the top. I was blessed because I was a project manager on like a multi-million-dollar project. I worked with all C-level executives, and I was like, God, these people are miserable, And I was like, this is not the life that I want when I'm older, when I want to have kids and have a family. And I was like, no. So yeah, I just was like, there has to be a different way. And then I kind of went on my own journey of discovering what that was, quit my job. I was like, see you guys, I'm going to India to do yoga teacher training in an ashram for 6 weeks. And they were like, are you fucking nuts? Giving this like really well, high paid job. Like you've delivered. We just launched like the last largest ICT project in the world. And they're like ride the wave of like the success of that. And I'm kind of going, no, I'm like, I'm done. I'm gonna find something else.
How did you know? Like, how that's such a huge contrast. Like, how did that happen?
I think for me it kind of came so with the manifestor for peace. For me, like I'm always, and this is something I've really had to learn to live with, is to I have the futurist. I'm futuristic, so I see beyond, like way beyond. I'm kind of going, I can keep going on this trajectory. I'm going to get to the top, because I was like, I for me, I want to change. I want to change in the world. You know, I was all about like female empowerment my whole career, but I worked in industries that was male dominated, where the women pulled the ladder up behind them, and I'm kind of going, what the fuck? Like, we're meant to be helping each other, and I was just like, no. And I remember, like, so I worked on like a lot of financial inclusion projects. It's given access to technology in third world countries. And like, so it was making a difference, but it wasn't enough. I just didn't feel fulfilled. And I felt it was robbing my own health and peace in the process. And it was just a feeling. I just was like, there has to be another way. And I just kind of went on that feeling for many years. Yeah, basically.
That's incredible. And so, obviously, on Instagram, you're called essentially Elaine. So, how did you and when did you start your journey with the essential oil side of things? Because you love them so much. You have like a whole new station in your redid your office, and you've like a whole station. It actually nearly looks like a load of little shellac nail varnishes. I was like, what's she doing over there?
Oh yeah, I have an obsession with painting my nails. Not they haven't been done in weeks. The state of them, actually, I should
Mine are
not put my
glue
hands up.
on, so I can't say anything.
So the oils for me was the biggest life-changing thing, actually, as a tool in my kit, because sorry, I totally forgot about the whole health aspect. And it was funny because I was just at an event last night, and on the essential oils, and they were asking like, oh well, what do you find so amazing about the oils? And I was kind of going, oh well, I used to be on a lot of pain medication and the pill because I have endometriosis, and it's great, like I'm completely, like I haven't taken medicine in years. But for me, the biggest shift was all about like shifting emotional trauma. And the guy was like, wait a minute. He was like, can we just go back to the endometriosis piece? And for me, and to be honest, I'm actually going to do a bit of work on this now, because I forget. I'm so far into my journey now that I forget about the origin. So when I came back to Ireland after my little stint in my ashram in India, I came back to Ireland actually because my dad wasn't well at the time. I think he's fine now.
Great.
But I was like, no, I want to be closer to home. So I came back, and yeah, like endometriosis is something I'd suffered with, like, well, like Jesus, since I became a woman. And because I lived in Asia, I had such influence with all my Asian friends, which was really like, get to the root cause of the problem. And it's not an approach here. And I did go to some like traditional Chinese medicine specialists, and like I would take these herbs. I'm like, no, I want to get off the pill, and I want to get off. I was on Ponston, like, Jesus,
God, Ponston.
every month, right? Every month. And I'm kind of going, oh my God, I might as well be drinking a bottle of whiskey every night, in terms of the impact that's having on my system. And no matter, so I would try some like natural alternatives. I'd come off it, and then I'd get like adult acne, or my moods be all over the shop, or the pain would be so severe. I was taking at least a day off work a month. And then, yeah, I'd go through phases right then where I'm like, I'd try an alternative route. Eventually it would stop working. And then I'd go back. I'd crawl back to the doctors going, okay, fine. And the whole approach, I'm here going, but I'm like, what's the reason? Like, why do I have this? And they're like, you're just going to have this for like, take this for the rest of your life, until maybe it might get better if you have children, but you'll struggle to have children. And I was like, what? And like, maybe you should start considering it. I remember coming home, I was about like 25. I was crying on the floor, and my boyfriend was like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, they told me I need to have children now. And I don't want to have children now. And oh God, it was like a roller coaster stuff, right?
Yeah,
So then
that's huge. You're very young to even have to think about that. Jesus.
oh, I know. And this is where, so there was a whole period of time where with the essential oils, where I was like shouting to women, like, to look after their health and look at alternative approaches. So I've been kind of, when I came back to Ireland, I still worked, helped a guy start up a digital agency here. And, but still it's the same, like back to like working mad hours, stressed, wasn't sleeping. One of my clients invited me to an essential oil class and she was like, oh, you're into all this kind of hippie stuff. Like, do you want to come along? And it was like I found my tribe because I'd come back to Ireland after being 6 years away and, you know, people had kind of settled down. They weren't interested in the same things. You know, my life had been so vibrant Monday to Sunday, not just on a Friday night, that I just couldn't get used to the way people were living. And so I was like, oh my God, these women are amazing. So they'd all told me stories of like, they started using essential oils and were told that they'd never have children and they conceived, or they had asthma, they were on inhalers for their whole life. Now they just use essential oils. And I just was like, wow, the light is really nice actually there.
Yeah, it literally is glowing like a little rainbow on you.
I haven't seen that actually, but I'm like, whoa.
That's only after coming in. That's gorgeous.
It looks like
you can look at this on YouTube, by the way, if anyone is wondering what we're talking about. Just going to drop that little plug.
Yes, I'll be watching on YouTube, which is great, by the way. But yeah, so everyone was just kind of sharing the power of these essential oils. And so for me, it was like this huge catalyst of change. So I stopped the pill, I stopped my painkillers, I started using 2 specific oil blends for this. And the difference with even in a month was insane. And I was like, okay. So then I went more and more into learning about like deeper into the body. So like our toxic load exposure in our homes, like how much like deodorants, anything with fragrance, which is in everything like shampoos, shower gels,
really
whatever.
Is actually, yeah.
Really affects our hormones. So then I started making all my own green cleaning products and body scrubs and everything with the oil. So really simple, Joe. And like I still do that today. And yeah, and then I was kind of going, oh my God, this is insane. And for me, then I was like, I haven't taken a painkiller with period pain in Jesus. How long is it now? It's nearly 4 or 5 years now.
Wow, that's insane.
It'd be 5 years actually in January.
What?
Yeah.
So how can, okay, obviously I have lots of followers that have ailments and stuff. How can we learn to like use essential oils for respiratory therapies and pain and hormonal imbalances? How do you learn that? Where do you go? Because I'm really interested now. You've got me.
I've got you. Great. I'm going to be doing a class in my house next week.
Oh.
But I am. So my mission for this was, and to be honest, I mean, I've like obviously several streams in my business now, which is only in its infancy, year 2, whatever. I've been doing, when I started doing the doTERRA oils like on the side when I was in corporate, because they were so life-changing for me naturally. I'm here going like, everyone needs these, Joe. And there was people that I'm here shoving it in their face and they're kind of going, no, I'm going to do what the doctor says. And I'm like, whatever. But I'm like, fine. Eventually I detached and now they're all, people that told me I was crazy are now all oil customers of mine, like my family included. Yes.
I love that. That's like a huge change. That's literally impacting someone's life like forever.
Oh, and even the event that I was at last night, because it was, so basically the way I would have done things before was always like in-person events. And then during all the lockdowns and everything, I went online with it. And then after a period of time, I got really bored of Zoom. I just got a bit zoomed out of like, cause it's so different when it's one thing about like, you know, learning online when you've experienced something in real life, but like when you experience the power of like the oils in a class and see how fast it works, you know, it's like that excitement for people. And then you're nurturing them and giving them all the education, like through videos or whatever after that, that's fine.
Exactly, yeah.
So I am, by the time this is up, actually, there will be a link to a basic introduction class. Last night I was like, well, how can I make this more change globally? Because I've been away traveling around and working around Europe the last month, and everyone's like, you know, they're like, oh, you smell lovely. And naturally I'm at the cafe going, oh, hey, try this. And they're like, oh my God, my sinus is cleared or whatever. And like, where can I get them? So I'm trying to make the process like simpler now, because for me, I'm like, this is global change. Like it's, everything starts with our health. We can talk about like the biggest visions under the sun, but if you're not feeling well and you're not energized, we're not going to be able to achieve anything.
That's where I get a lot of my frustration from. It's like I have all this energy to go and this creative flow, and then the body's like, sorry, not this week. Here's a little chest infection for you. Into the hospital you go. So it would be just amazing to have another tool in my like holistic toolbox for my physical health, because sometimes I run away with all of this inner work that I want to do, and I'm like you, I love learning, so I'm like more, and then
The
I'm
five.
like, yes, the 5 in my human design. So therefore I need to remember about the physical health too. So I'd love to definitely do your class. That sounds super interesting, and we will make sure at the end to tell everyone where they can find you, because I know my listeners will definitely be interested as well. Hey guys, did you know that my breathwork coaching services are officially live for you to book into? Why not expand your inner growth journey even further with me and book into my weekly workshops held every Wednesday evening, or one of my Feel It Out drop-in sessions held every Tuesday and Thursday evenings? If you are particularly struggling with something such as grief, overwhelm, self-confidence issues, motivation, chronic fatigue, or pain, book in for a free consultation before attending some of my one-to-one breathwork coaching with me. You can find out more at breathewithaoife.com. I'm very much like on the start of my manifesting journey, I feel. I mean, you literally just taught me about human design. Elaine asked me, she was like, so what's your human design? And I looked like a deer in headlights. I was like, I have no idea what language you're talking anymore. So like, I'm at the start, you seem a little bit more advanced in manifesting. And sometimes on social media lately, I've seen like a lot of things that might be kind of dissing manifesting. I don't think the entire idea of it is out there. Like I still have friends who be like, it's not just about like words of affirmation. Like it's about action. Like life happens because you do things, not because you think a certain way. So how would you describe manifesting for people like that?
Yeah, oh God. I actually just got like sucked down the Instagram rabbit hole earlier. What was this guy's name? My friend sent me this thing, and it was kind of like a piss take on spirituality, basically.
Yeah, there's a lot of
And
them. I'm like, can't deal.
I found it insanely triggering actually at the start.
Yeah.
But my friend had me go, "This is you," and I was like, "Excuse me," but it was like this guy, and he's here like his friend is inviting him for dinner. And he's like, oh, I don't know. I'll have to check with my guides and I'll have to see if I'm in flow and all this kind of stuff, right? And this is completely now unprocessed thinking on my part, because I was kind of going, for me, right? Like when I went on this journey of like healing and leaving the old patriarch or whatever, I went in and I probably was a bit preachy, because I was like, oh my God, like there's this whole other way of living. But I probably went a little bit extreme. So I went vegan as well for 2 years. I'm not anymore.
Jeez, that must be so difficult socially, I have to imagine, in Ireland anyway.
It was difficult, right? I mean, God, here, right, well, let's just go for it now anyways. But I used to work in FMCG in food, and I know how long it takes to get a product to market, right? In terms of the market research and everything. And we went vegan a couple of years ago. And for me, it was for health reasons, right? I was kind of going, like, a part of my whole endometriosis journey, I'm kind of going, no, I was like, I'm actually, yes. And I like, obviously with like taking care of the planet, et cetera, right? But I could not have been more greener. And my health actually deteriorated a little bit, because with kids and everything, they're like, oh, I don't like this or whatever, so you'd be buying like fake plant burgers or something. And I was like, Jesus, what are we doing? We've got to a point, right, where we're actually not eating food that's made from a plant, it's being made in a plant, right? And that really hit me, and I was kind of going,
that's a bit spooky. Don't like that one.
Yes. And also I was like, the speed of which all of these artificial replicate products have come to market, it's like the market research has been done there. There was something that actually felt a little bit like off to me, right? And I'm sure there's going to be a million people that disagree here. But at the end of the day, right, as in I've interviewed several nutritionists like over time on my podcast and whatever, and like every single person's body is different. So no diet like fits all approaches.
No.
And for me, I really could not understand the anger in the movement. Like it was just so totalitarian. And I was in this group, and I remember there was a girl who was getting married, and she was vegan and her husband was vegetarian. And she put in going, oh, what restaurants would people recommend? And people attacked her going, you shouldn't be marrying someone who doesn't honor your values. You know, something about like, there was like the word murder mentioned. I was kind of going, oh my God.
Wow. The
And
venom.
I was like, no. And for me, I felt that was too extreme and too toxic. And I really actually kind of was a bit of a wake up call for me, because I actually got to the point where I felt like nothing I was doing was enough. I was getting anxiety going into the supermarket, right? Because I just saw the amount of plastic and packaging. And here's me, trying not to buy plastic. I'm making my own dishwasher tablets. I'm eating vegan. I'm doing this, that, and the other. And then if I ever did anything wrong, I was feeling shame, right? So if anyone who is into energy, right, shame and fear are the lowest vibrational emotions on our emotional spectrum, right? So when we feel shame and when we feel fear or guilt, we're completely lowering our energetic vibration in our body. And this is a really key piece in actual manifesting, which I know was the original question. I've got off a
That's my
complete
fault.
tangent. Well, no, because I think this is more addressing like what's going on in the industry, like in the world, sorry, not in the industry, because there's a mass awakening happening. And at the end of the day, I think we affect greater change as humans if we all live with more intention and we all try our best as opposed to try to be perfect. Perfectionism does not exist, right?
Mm-mm.
And so when we actually step into the realms of like what is manifesting, right? Because exactly what you said, right? People think, oh, I'm going to sit here in my lovely room, which is a lovely, nice room. You come in here and you know I manifest. It's full of crystals and essential oils, diffusers going. I've got a crystal grid. There's amethyst in my corner here. So for anyone who works at home, the left corner of your office, if you put amethyst, it's like the wealth corner. So it's for like attracting abundance. However,
I actually have amethyst in my left corner and I didn't realize any of that. So go me.
Yes. So this is like one of the core fundamentals of feng shui. But I'm not going to sit in this corner, right? Freaking file my nails for the day and expect me to be hitting like, whatever, 5-figure, 6-figure business or whatever your hell it is you're working towards. Do you know what I mean? Like that's just not how manifesting works. It does take action as well. So I teach a lot of this in my business programs, and it is like the unity of our masculine and feminine energies, because in traditional corporate structures, like also particularly as women, have worked entirely in our masculine for years. It's not like we shun the emotion and the intuition like down, So what happens is, and this is a journey I've been on, everyone goes on when they go on their healing journey. And it's like, oh, well, what is my purpose and what do I want? We go so into our feminine. We become obsessed with healing, like almost to the extent that we don't take action. We don't actually go do the cacao ceremony. We don't run the event. We don't show up and live it, right? Because we're so in the feminine, because we have to heal the masculine. So that was a really big thing for me. Like we talked about at the start, was like, not to be distracted just by the pretty things of business and the fun, exciting things. We need to be building a foundation as well. Yeah. So this is like where the masculine and feminine comes together. And it's the same with manifesting. It's like, okay, this is what I want. So my key thing that I do for this is, well, one, rest. Like I really nurture and protect my energy, have solid boundaries in place that like, really, when you start valuing your time and you're valuing your energy, life will just get easier. You'll have an abundance more of time to be giving, right? Number two, looking at alignment. So what are you doing in your life that is aligned? Because when things are aligned, things are easy and they'll flow. They'll flow better. You'll get more momentum. Then number three, when I sit down every day and I'm like, what action? Because like the work I'm doing, I know is aligned. I know I've got boundaries in place to protect my energy. And then I'm like, okay, what would my higher self do now? Right. So the real key mindset shift, I think, in manifesting is, right, like we have multiple timelines available to us. Like you were always going to set up a podcast, right? So
I bought my podcast launch plan during cocooning 2 years ago from COVID. And you're the reason, to be fair, you gave me a kick in the ass to make this happen. I forgot to say that earlier. So thanks, girl.
Yes, at that the email workshop we did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is me though, in my role as a manifestor, right? It's to initiate people. So I hope a load of people that are listening to this are like, fuck yeah, I'm going to go and do the thing that you're being called to do, right? So we've multiple timelines. So, this came to you as an initiation 2 years ago, but you didn't take the action. By now, you could be on the top 10. Right? That was available to you then, but you decided no, because we let fear. And this is where the mindset work is absolutely fundamental. So I'm always like, okay, I have multiple timelines, Joe. Like, what is my goal that I want to achieve? So if I just start showing up now, like, I mean, that could happen in 2 weeks or it could happen in 2 years. And this is the beautiful thing about manifesting is in like, when we surrender into, we don't need to know the how, we just need to be showing up. So I'm like, okay, I've done my alignment check and like my boundaries are good. I'm like, what action would my higher self take today? And the action for my higher self is like the future self. Like, what would she do? And so I flipped the mindset of kind of like, I used to always be like, when I have this, I'm going to be this person and I'm going to do these things. Right.
Yeah.
That might never happen. That day might never come. Right. And just a simple example was, I was always like, when I was in corporate, I was like, oh my God, when I work for myself, I'm going to take so much better care of myself. I'm going to go for a massage once a week and I'm going to do this, that, and the other. I'm going to have a gym in my house and all this kind of stuff. Right. But then when I started working for myself, I went from having like a significant paycheck to like starting from nothing. And I was like, I got into the work mode, but like very much in my feminine, I would say, in terms of going, oh yeah, whatever. And then I had a little wake up call actually when somebody passed and I was kind of going, fuck, I might never actually make that day. And I'm kind of going, if I'm not enjoying every day, what's the point? And I really changed that mindset around to like kind of going, okay, I'm going to be this person now. I'm going to show up in that energy now. Built a gym in my house. Didn't need to be a millionaire for that to happen. I act like showing up in the morning going, I'm going to exercise now first, because the more I nurture myself and my energy and my mind, the more I am going to attract in, because I'm literally a magnet. And then shit changed tenfold. So that I think is a real, you have to be taking action. Like if it's aligned for you, do it, like really be like, okay, what would I do now?
It's really interesting because I'm just resonating so much with like the older, more stuck version of myself in so much that you're saying. And I probably didn't really realize how this big shift happened in my life from being me, Aoife today versus old Aoife. I put everything down to the trauma and the health struggles and the cancer and everything. But really, like, I wasn't finding joy in every day before I ever got cancer, before I ever had to leave Sydney. Was living over there having the time of my life. Well, I say I was having the time of my life, but I was also in a pretty toxic relationship, unhappy, unhealthy, and the relationship brought out the worst version in me. And even though I wanted to be in Sydney and go backpacking for like 5 years, I was like, I love this place, but I am like, I had even got depressional, suicidal thoughts over it there, and I couldn't figure out what it was. But it's like it was like an accumulation of years of not being really happy on the day to day. Definitely I was depressed. I didn't realize I was depressed, but I wasn't always depressed. I'm like trying to explain that it comes from such basic things, kind of getting on top of us and letting them manifest into a negative, huger, bigger issue. And I think, yeah, what you're saying definitely resonates, and it kind of makes me feel emotional to think how far I've come and to hear your story and to think how far you've come. Like, I think people are just so bloody inspiring and so bloody fantastic. Like, as you even said earlier offline, like you love looking into celebrities and are richer, like more successful people, and how they got to where they are, and there nearly seems to always be a huge kind of breakthrough story for those successful people to get to where they are. And I just think it's so fascinating. I think people are amazing. I just think we're amazing.
We are amazing, and it's getting out there and share. Like, your story is so inspirational. So that's why when we chatted there, whenever we met like 2 months ago, I was like, you need a podcast. And like, you didn't tell me anything about your podcast. No. I was like, you need to get out there and like and share this. But from a like a deeper, wider level, as we were saying, like when we were talking about your human design, I'm kind of going like, your illness does not define you.
Mm.
Like I was like that when I looked at her human design chart, I'm like, Aoife, she is born to lead change on this earth. Do you know? And even when you're saying about with your relationship, like, I mean, that's all part of your journey, right? To make you who you are. Do you know, I don't look at anything. The only thing I would say I ever have regretted, was not taking action sooner
Mm.
on things now that I know, right? But any relationship, any job I took, like, I've made some like shitty decisions that I'm kind of like, oh God, that has made me unhappy, but it brought me closer to where I am now. And now I'm at a point, this is where I talk like the alignment and the boundaries piece. And I think it's a really good starting point to get back on track to who you are, what your purpose is,
Yes.
because now I'm like meticulous with that. Like for me, it's so polar, the like having the joy in every single day, that like when something comes in to rock the boat, instantly I'm kind of going, no, that fucking needs to go.
It's
Do you know?
true. Once you tune
So
into that, it's actually so much easier to identify like what's going right and what's going wrong. And when we talk about energy, like one of the first things I realized what energy was and how people have it was, I actually lived with this incredible couple, this English and Scottish couple over in Sydney, and they just had so much energy, positive energy. Like you could not be in bad form in their company. Like they were just the happiest, most excitable people. And I was like, what is this? What is this? What am I feeling? What am I getting from these people? And once I started tuning into that, I also started tuning into the opposite, and who and what was making me feel the opposite to that. And that's how I think started this whole journey. I think it's insane how I went that long and people go that long without even realizing those obvious feelings and energy that what people have.
do you know, it's an addiction. I swear, I've done so much work in this and I find it really fascinating. But we actually can get addicted to the trauma of the ups and downs in a relationship,
I believe that.
friendships, whatever. And it's sometimes we all want to belong, we all want to be loved and accepted. And yeah, it like that piece, honestly, I've said this in several podcasts, interviewing others about like stuff. And I'm like, that's the hardest part, is like looking at our circle. But I'm kind of going, just sit with this, as in like our mindset and your life will be the average of the
Mm.
5 people you spend your most time with.
Wow. I'm
It's fucking.
just reflecting now who's in my life the most. But it's true, like moving to Wexford has been the biggest, most incredible thing I've ever done in my life. I Alan is like so zen. I love my family, but their energy is the complete polar opposite to Alan's. They'll say that themselves. It's a madhouse when I go home to Kildare, and I think for a long time I put a lot of my health down and like energy levels down to my physical ailments and my disease. But really, I think it was emotional, not feeling that I was being heard or being seen, because my family are so crazy and it's like trying to talk over each other and get a word in, and I'm just like came to this point where I was like, oh, I just can't shout any louder. I couldn't be arsed. So to like have the balance of both of that now is like amazing, because I love going home and going 90 miles an hour, but then I love coming back to Wexford and having my sanctuary and my chill zen recuperation time with Alan, where I can just like work on me, work on the business, spend time with the dog on the beach. Like, Jesus, I can't believe I have the best of both worlds, really. And you yourself
Yes.
are like literally only back from working all over Europe. Like when Elaine was away, I was just like, she's living my future self. Like this is what I'm going to be doing. Um, yeah. How did that all come about? Like, is that something you've always wanted to do?
Yeah. Um, for me, the international aspect, obviously, I lived away, same as you, for years, right? But I lived away, again, time poor, tons of money, not a lot of time. So I used to be like, falling out of the office on a Friday evening, wrecked, getting on a plane to go and travel somewhere because I wanted to make the most of life, or I was volunteering, or I
Yeah.
was doing something. But I'm like, but I want to do more of this. but I only had 25 days annual leave. Half that was spent going back to Ireland to visit my family. So yeah, I was kind of going like, I didn't feel free. And the more and more money I earned, the less freedom I actually felt, ironically. Um, and I was like, nah. So for me now to be able to work for myself, I earn way more than I earned in my corporate job eventually. Like that's taken time, but I always knew it was possible. And I'm like, now I'm here to show other people how to do that. And like, I know you're like, oh, it's gonna be me. And I'm like, oh my God, you're there. I'm living through you. And I'm kind of go, no, but like, this is just a key point, right? And I think particularly for everyone in Ireland right now, because there was so much when I lived away, and I don't know if you did this in Sydney, because I left during the recession. No, like, it was like, oh, people couldn't get jobs, blah, 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 whatever. And I dimmed down anything that I was doing. I was having the freaking time of my life in Asia. Like, I mean, oh God, I can't even tell you half the stories. Like it was mental. It was insane. I mean, geez, we were flying on freaking private jets for work and stuff. Like
Oh,
it was like
stop.
beach party. Oh,
Wow.
it was wild, like wild, wild, wild. Like I always say, someday I'll write a book. But anyway, if I
Yeah,
remember it
please
all,
do, because you've got some stuff going in there that you're not saying, and I want to know.
geez, because the podcast will be about 10 hours. But the point of this being is, as in, like, I wouldn't share these things ever because I'm like, oh God, people are having a bad time, or it's hard times at home, or whatever, right? And it was only I was chatting with my coach on this the other day, like because I came back to Ireland just like 4 days ago, and I was like, I honestly have had the time of my life the last month. Like, I was catching up with my best friends that had come in from the States and Denmark, and so my best friend get married, and we were in Ibiza, rented a villa. We had a chef, we had a cocktail man, like, bringing us cocktails in the
Oh,
pool all day.
stop
And I was
it.
like, I felt like I made up for the last 2.5 years. And I'm the same
Yeah.
as you. Like, my day-to-day life is like super simple, and I love it. Like, going to the beach, doing my rituals, walking the dog, having a nice meal with my husband. And I do
Yeah.
love this time of year of snuggling up wherever. But I love adventure. I love meeting new people. I went to like insane events. Not one time in 4 weeks did anybody talk to me about inflation or a recession or anything. And I wouldn't mind, like, I mean, I was in Spain for 2 weeks in Mallorca, and like I went by myself. I had 8 people at my leaving dinner by the time I left. So I'm sorry, it wasn't my leaving, it was a dinner before I left. You know what I mean? But it was all the people I'd met that come together that all actually worked for themselves. And I asked them, actually, I was kind of going, how do you protect your mindset? Like, what's it like, where you live and all this kind of stuff. And they're like, protecting your mindset is everything. Right. And they're kind of going like, you either earn money, right? But like as an entrepreneur, you've got the ability to create money, and that's your power. So if things are increasing, you just make more money. And I'm like, totally right. Right. Headphones on, like, like muffling. And then I come back to Ireland, and it's like, every single person, like, you go to the shop, go by, oh, we're reducing our coffee prices or whatever. And I'm kind of going like, oh, we've dark days ahead. I've heard that about 20 times in 4 days. And I'm kind of going like, no. And so basically I was like, I can't be sharing my September wins. Like, people are going through a hard
Oh,
time.
right.
And then my
Okay.
coach bitch slapped me and was like, no,
Yeah.
you need to be the light. And I was like, yes, this is just a reminder for everyone else, be the light. Because if we all adapt this whole narrative, like, we will all suffer. Like, we're not going to rise, So I'm like, when we all start to shine, the light will actually overshine the shadow.
100%. I couldn't agree with that more. And that is even just like reminding me of, even though I was depressed in Sydney and I was in an unhealthy relationship, this is what I was getting. This couple that I lived with, they were the light. They were the only constant thing that, even not even the beautiful Bondi Beach where I lived, was making me happy. This energy from this people was making me happy. They were my light. And I think that is just so crucial in times when, because you don't know what even anyone else is going through. So yes, we are collectively going through, an unsettled period financially, I suppose, for the larger. And imagine, like, individually what people's stories are behind all of that, if they're running a business or owning a business. As you said, we just don't know. Like, most people have had inspiring or traumatic situations to get to where they are, and you just don't know, I suppose, what's going on in the person walking down the street beside you when everyone else is being so, negative connectively. I totally resonate with that. What you
But I ask though, for you, if that couple had been like to you, oh, Aoife, oh, you poor thing.
I would have fed
Like
off it at the time. I would have loved a pity
there's a
party.
lot of bad guys out there. This is life, this is just the dating scene now.
It could
You'd
be
feel
worse.
hopeless.
It could be worse.
You'd feel hopeless, right?
Yeah.
And you'd give up. This is why I'm kind of going like, no. And yeah.
Yeah, but I also like I don't know if it's a victim mindset as such, but I just like was so used to the pity party and kind of thrived off it. Like what you're saying, it was addictive. And
Yeah.
that is probably how I ended up being so unwell physically for so many years. Because really, none of my health tests have changed over the years. But I feel the best I've ever felt, despite being menopausal. I'm on like a small dose of an antidepressant. I've gone through all the oncology stuff, and like I'm here feeling unreal. Like do the maths, guys. It's the inner work. It has to stand for more. Um,
And
as
your
you
energy is magnetic though. Like you
no, your
are
energy is
vibrating.
magnetic. I feel like I'm buzzing off your energy. Like,
No, you're always freaking buzzing.
oh, trust me, I'm not. But what you were saying as well, like about starting off your business and protecting your mindset, like I want to pick your brain because you are like the boss bitch that like definitely inspires me. And like I'm at the very start of launching my business now, and I do feel like the imposter syndrome obviously creeps in more some days than others, and that kind of fear of failure I think comes from like probably, I suppose I was protected a lot. Always, oops, I'm knocking my microphone. I always protected a lot, always being like the sick child of my family. So I'm just like really afraid that if I don't do well now, it's good. Everyone's going to be like, "Well, you shouldn't have done that. You're the sick child. You're not able for all that." That haunts me. How do I How do I get over those kind of destructive thoughts as someone who wants to be an entrepreneur?
Um, we'll do a hypnosis track for you.
Yeah,
But
probably.
well, that's to go in more on the subconscious level, but like you've already there identified a lot of where that programming has come in for you, like in
Mm.
terms of being sick and like being taken care of, and they wrapped you in cotton wool, and it's like, like we'll mind Aoife, but like, nah, you're a fucking boss. I mean, it's written in your chart, it's in your freaking DNA, right? That you're here to your sickness has been part of your story. Do you know what I mean?
True.
And but it doesn't define you. It's not who you are. Like you've got so much more to give beyond that. That's actually, and this has just been what's fueled a lot of your strength and your resiliency. And as I've said, in terms of like, I'm like, there's no such thing as failure. Failure is not taking action, right? It's the missed opportunities. So, you do this business, and like, and what? Like, I think we have this whole thing of like, I think particularly in Ireland, the perception of change is failure. There's a lot, like, I mean, my business now, like versus year one, is completely different, right? Because I mean, there was lockdowns. I couldn't do events. I couldn't do anything. So I started doing all this other stuff, and then I'm like, this actually isn't aligned for me. I'm like, I don't want to do it. And I pivoted, and people were like, kind of going, oh god. But I had to let go of all that imposter syndrome, because I'm like, at the end of the day, people only give a shit for about 2 minutes, right?
It's
That little marathon
true.
that they talk about, they're not lying in bed at night going, oh my god, what is Aoife doing, or what is Elaine doing? Do you know what I mean? So it's like, what's going to bring you the happiness and the joy in the now? And if the business fails, so what? You're going to learn a shitload from it,
And so
right? It's
like
the same.
what if those thoughts, what you're saying, like you are worried about what people are thinking, what people are saying, like how do you center yourself back from running away with all those negative doubts? What do you do?
So, and like they definitely crawl up. I think I'm trying to think of. So for me, I think it was in the summer this year when all this like inflation talk started, right? And one thing another. And I let it was like a seed that was planted in, and it was coming in from my family and everyone. And I was kind of going, oh my God. And the thoughts of me getting in a car and driving to Dublin to a corporate job in Dublin made me want to give up. I was like, I'm like, there is no plan B. There is only plan A, right? So I was like, I'm not even going to look at a plan B because it's going to distract me from my fucking plan A. But I did get into I let that a bit of scarcity set in, and it directly impacted my business and how I was showing up because I let fear set in. So for me, I'm like in life illness, I'm like, prevention is better than the cure. I'm solid on my rituals, like every day, like journaling, really like actually processing my emotion, getting like a good mentor. I'm in membership groups like with other women in business that have also big goals. So like the key thing is is everything underpins to our beliefs, right? So like we solidify our belief by doing the action, getting results, and also being by around other people. Like back to the mindset piece of
Yeah,
like, are you
true.
around other people who are really like, yes, go on? Because when I started out, like I remember with doTERRA, my parents like, oh my God, that's a pyramid scheme. What are you doing? Don't do that, whatever. Oh my God, no, no, no. You'll never make any money doing that. And I'm kind of going, what? And I was like, I've got friends who are making 10 grand a month doing this. Do you know, as in like they physically show me their freaking bank account. But I mean, that took obviously time for me, but I was always reacting, right? And then I had the same thing kind of come up again with family. Because there's so much money of the money stuff have to be healed here in Ireland in particular. And
Definitely.
mine were given out to me going, oh, look at you off there and freaking Ibiza and your pool parties. You need to knuckle down now and make some money. And I'm kind of going, I wasn't making money. I was like, I have passive revenue streams in my business. I was making money when I was sitting in the pool having my cocktail. But they don't get it. But I was getting really defensive because I haven't been here in ages and I haven't been having those conversations. And I was clearly triggered to fuck. And my husband was like, Jesus, Elaine, you got really triggered there on the phone, defending yourself. And if I get to a stage of defense, that's when I need to be, I come back to boundaries.
Yes. Okay.
So it's really like, as in, like, you know, I'm kind of going like, you have done so much. We all do so much inner work to get to where we want to go, to get clear on what the vision is or whatever, that we need to protect that. It's like, you know, you're the queen in your castle. Have the lovely moat around you, you know, protecting your energy, protecting your vision. And I think that's now important more than ever. So like, whether it's like what I like a good tool to do would be say like record your voice like with your affirmations and your vision on it with some nice music and play it when you're going out on a walk
That's
every day.
clever.
Yeah, the simple things like this, like that you're just kind of going. So when you're having, like, I have like a write down your journal and kind of go, okay, what helps me recenter? Is it going for a sea swim? Is it calling a friend or booking a session with a mentor or whatever it is that will bring you back on track? Because this is another part of manifestation that people don't talk about, right? Because when you manifest, like imagine, I'm trying to think of something that processes something. Okay, let's say a smoothie maker, right? Like, let's get the visual here, right? So, you know, we put in anything we drop into the smoothie maker is blended into the mix, like as soon as
Yes.
it nearly touches, right? So imagine our brain being like the smoothie maker that's coming into our body, right? It's coming into the mind, it's coming into our energetic body, and we're like, okay, I'm trying to manifest a man or a new client or whatever, right? And our thoughts is what becomes our reality, and then we let go, oh my God, there's a recession coming and I'm going to be broke, my business is going to shut down, I'm going to fail. The speed of that smoothie maker that's blending, because you've generated all this momentum, you've generated all this energy, and then you let the bad seed comes in and it ruins the whole mix. And this is so like you've seen, I'm obsessed with self-development, obviously, in case anyone hasn't noticed by now. But I love learning from others. Like I love surrounding myself with like getting in the room with people who have like made it. And I've sat in places where like people have built 7-figure businesses and then something happens and the scale at which that burns down to the ground because like the momentum is so fast and then something bad comes in and like it just collapses it.
It's incredible.
So that's why I'm like, you know, I'm like, protect your energy, you know,
Because like what you're really saying is it just involves so much more. Like it's not just ignore the bad thoughts or journal about the bad thoughts. It's like the preventative protection. There's so many layers to why we are afraid of failing, why we are self-doubt, why we've low confidence. There's just so much to kind of work on, and it's doable though. It's so doable.
yeah, sure, we're doing it.
That's it. We're doing it. Okay, so I just wanted to double check with you where we can get all your amazing classes and services and what you're offering at the moment with the SAS Collective and everything.
Amazing. Geez, I haven't even talked about the SAS Collective. So all of my information is available on my website. So www.essentialelaine.com. So all my offerings, events, there's downloadable hypnosis tracks, all of that. And then the SAS Collective is more like a movement for other rising leaders and soulpreneurs, so specifically on the kind of entrepreneurship journey. So there's different kind of programs and offerings and masterminds there to kind of help you put in like foundations and the tech trainings and all that kind of some of the stuff that we've done together as well.
I mean, if people aren't sold after this interview, like I am probably going to listen to this about 3 times.
I'm like, geez, Eva, I was like, that's like a cross interrogation. It's actually been so nice to kind of reflect on some of this stuff myself because I forget.
Yeah.
You just don't talk about it day to day.
No, you're like so much to reflect on. It's been totally interesting and exciting getting to know you on a better level. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for stepping up and doing this amazing podcast. I'm actually so excited to tune in. You're actually amazing interviewing. So I'm excited to hear everyone else's.
Oh, thanks so much. You're so kind. I hope you found this week's episode as awe-inspiring as I did. As I always say, knowledge is power, and I know you've gained an abundance of both from this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can watch these episodes over on my YouTube channel, Breathe with Aoife. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe to We Share, We Grow wherever you get your podcasts. And if you really enjoyed this episode, please donate over on my Patreon page, patreon.com/Breathe with Aoife, to help me gain the means to share and grow even more with you all. Thanks for listening.